Hi, welcome to Quilting with Lori. My name is Lori Dickman, and today I have a Scrappy block number 16 for you. This is the next block in my 52-week series of Scrappy blocks. I have a couple of samples that I have made up for you. This one is called Churn Dash Variation. I love the Churn Dash because you can use a lot of your 5-inch squares and your 2.5-inch squares or jelly roll strips. And we quilters often have many 5-inch and 2.5-inch squares or our strips available in our stash. So it's a great way to use up your stash and make beautiful quilts. So let's take a look at this and see how it goes together. So first of all, don't forget to save or download the PDF that's attached, or maybe you're making a playlist of all of these videos so that you can easily access them. Currently, I just have the description and directions for the block on here, but I'm also going to add what it would look like in a quilt. And there's so many ways you can do this. I've given you some lights, mediums, and darks ideas, but you can certainly vary that. You can move your darks and lights around with regard to your half square triangles. What I did on this one is I took my darker blocks, or part of the half square triangle, and put them on the outside, and here I put them on the inside. So you can see how that, just doing that really helps to give you a variety in your block itself. And then it's also going to create a secondary motif when you put all of these together. Or you could put a sashing in between all of the blocks with maybe cornerstones. There's so many options that you have available to you, and by putting sashings in here, you're actually going to be using up even more of your stash. So let's see what we need for each one of these blocks. So for each of these blocks, this is what you're going to need, and these are just suggestions. You can certainly mix this up. It's your quilt, your block, have fun with it. But I do have one 4.5-inch, in this case sort of a medium, maybe a dark center, that will be used for the center. I have two 5-inch darks, two 5-inch lights, and they will be used to create the half square triangles. I have 8 light 2.5-inch squares and 8 dark 2.5-inch squares, or you might consider those mediums. But that's what I'm going to use for each and every block. And often we have these sizes in our scrap stash, so they're very popular size squares to have, and they make up into a beautiful quilt. And the fun thing about this block is that it goes together so very quickly. So here I am at the sewing machine, and I'm going to simply make some half square triangles, a total of 4, using the 5-inch squares, one dark and one light. Right sides together. I am going to take a pencil or some kind of a marking tool, and I am going to draw a diagonal line from one corner to the opposite corner. And then I'm going to sew a scant 1/4 inch, and by scant I mean about a thread or two less than 1/4 inch on each side of the drawn line. And then I will cut on the drawn line and then press it open. We'll square it up as well. So I'll show you all of these steps here in just a minute. So here I am sewing the half square triangle units. I'm sewing a scant 1/4 inch on both sides of that drawn line. I'm simply going to flip it now, bring it back, line it up, and sew on the opposite side. And you've seen me do this numerous times, but for those of you who've never done this before and you're new to my channel, I want to show you how this is done. Okay. And you can do this in assembly line fashion with as many half square triangle units as you need to make. For this block, we only need 4, so I have a total of 2 units. Now, when I cut them apart, what I like to do is cut from stitch line to stitch line, and that just helps to get rid of some excess fabric, those dog ears. And I'll show you this when I'm done cutting. So if you can see that helps to just kind of square that up from stitch line to stitch line, and it gets rid of some of the extra dog hair. And then I'm going to cut on the diagonal line, and in my case I'm just using a scissors here. You can certainly use your ruler and mat and your rotary cutter, whatever you choose. I am cutting right on that drawn line. Now what we need to do is square up each of these 4 half square triangle units to 4.5 inches. So I'm going to get my triangle square up ruler and my circular mat, and I'll be right back. So this mat that I got, it's actually a rotating mat. I don't have a circular small one at this size, but this is a very convenient one for squaring up half square triangle units at my sewing machine here. And it moves around nicely, so if you have one of these, great, go ahead and grab it. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to square up each of these 4 units. I am going to use my trimmer A from the Clearly Perfect slotted trimmer. That is what I'm going to use to square this up. Trimmer A is the one that you use for 1/2 inch size units, from 1.5 inch to 6.5 inch. Since I want to square this to 4.5 inches, this is the one that I'll use. I do have another one of these, that's trimmer B, and it's for the even size units. So what you'll want to do, if you notice on here, there is a dotted line, and that represents the sewing line or the stitching line. I am going to line that up, the 4.5 inch stitching line, on my stitching line on my unit. So it's now lined up, and then I'm going to simply trim away the excess on these 2 sides. And the neat thing about the slotted trimmer here is that it also has these little slots going on the diagonal, which help you eliminate this excess dog ear on each side. So that's just very convenient. And then you're going to have just a little bit of excess, not much, but that definitely makes a difference in your block. So be sure that you square up each and every half square triangle unit to 4.5 inches. And then you can press it. I like to press mine to the dark. You may choose to press yours open, whichever works best for you. I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of these, press them, and I'll be right back. Before I head over and press these units, I wanted to share with you, this is a little bit of leftover that I cut away from my 4 half square triangle units. It isn't much, and you could certainly throw that in the trash if you want, but I've actually started a little bag here of itty bitty tiny pieces, and I am going to be doing a landscape quilt using these itty bitty tiny pieces. So if you'd like to accomplish that landscape quilt with me, in a few weeks I'm going to be doing that, go ahead and save all of these fun little things in that bag, and just keep a bag handy, and when I do that landscape tutorial, you can follow along and have a good time with your scraps. And these are itty bitty tiny scraps. Okay, so I have my half square triangle units finished. They are pressed. I press mine to the dark. You can certainly press yours open if you choose. I have my 4.5 inch center square here. Now I'm going to make my 4 patch units, and I need 8 of these. And I like to do these so that I can sew them together in assembly line fashion in units. So what I'm going to do on this one, you'll notice I have the red on the dark on the bottom, light on the top. And in this case, I am going to put the light on the bottom and the dark on the top. And then I'm going to sew these together in units just like that, so that I can cut them apart in pairs and then sew them together. I'll show you what I mean here. Oops, I have too many. So that's that one right there. I'm going to mix up the colors here. There we go. Now I've got a dark on the top, light on the bottom. Here I have a dark on the bottom, light on the top. Here I have a light on the bottom, dark on the top. Dark on the bottom, light on the top. And here we've got a dark on the top, light on the bottom. And hopefully I have 8 of them here. I need to have 4 sets. So there's a pair. Here's a pair, and a pair. Now what we'll do is sew these pairs together, and I don't even press them at this point yet. If you open them up, you'll see that they are all ready to go together. So I'm going to nest this together so that the seams are opposite here, pressing toward the dark there, or pushing the seam allowance toward the dark. And I'm going to start sewing these. Here's the next one. Here we go. Put it together. And again, I'm nesting and sewing. So it's just a fast way to put together your 4 patches from your Speedy Solutions scrap stash. If I can get it open here. There we go. And then the last one here. I feel like I'm all thumbs today. There we go. All right, so we have the 4 pairs sewn together to create our 4-patch units. And what you can do if you like is to create pinwheels here. I am making sure that I am clipping the chain thread. This was the thread that was created when I chained all of them together. So it needs to be clipped. And then depending on the direction that your longest seam allowance, you want to fold it so that the longest seam allowance is facing you, and then you're going to twist it. And depending on the direction that that seam allowance is facing, you'll either twist it to the left or to the right. And I twisted that one to the left. Let me get this one clipped. There is a chain stitch there that I have to clip. And this is all facing the left. This is the longest seam right there that I just finished sewing. And since it's facing the left, I'm twisting it to the left and opening it. Sometimes I sew them together and I've sewn them where the seam allowance is facing the right. Sometimes I sew them together where they're facing the left, so it'll twist a different direction. So if you're not able to get yours to twist properly, it's simply because you're twisting it incorrectly. You need to twist it either to the right or the left, depending on how that last seam allowance was sewn. And there we go. We've got them all open, and they have little tiny pinwheels in the center there, if you can see that. Now I'm going to take it and press it so you can see it even better, and then I'll bring it back and square it up. Okay, so I have everything pressed and squared up, and I just wanted to show you the pinwheels. You can see it a little bit easy here because those red pieces are quite bright. And here's another one. You can't see it quite as easily because there are round circles within that red, but those are twisted. And the purpose of making the pinwheels in the center of 4 patches is simply to make that area flatter so that when you're quilting, there isn't so much bulk there. It's not something you have to do, but it's just nice to do that because it does allow this to lay much flatter, and then as you're quilting over that area, your needle isn't going to catch so much. So let's go ahead and lay these out. It's basically, again, 3 rows of 3. All 52 of the blocks that I'm creating for you, these scrappy blocks, are 12.5. They'll finish at 12 inches. They're 12.5 inches that they have to be trimmed to. And so often they are 3 rows of 4.5 inch squares. But it just depends on the scrappy block that I present to you. Here is the churn dash variation with the dark squares this direction, and then all of the darks are facing the center of the quilt. You could certainly flip it around like this and put it together so that the lights are in the center. It's totally up to you. You're creating a different look in that case. But I'm going to go ahead and put this one together with the churn dash portion toward the center of the quilt. And again, I'm just going to web this together. I'm going to start here with the center first square, place it over the first square of the first row, sew this, and then come back and add these to it. So I will do that, and I'll be right back. So here is the last block that I just created for you. And a fun block, simple one. I've got 3 of them here. If I had a 4th one, you'd be able to see the secondary designs that are created using these blocks. But I think you'll find that this will make a beautiful quilt, and it will absolutely use up a lot of your stash, especially if you have a lot of 2.5-inch squares and a lot of 5-inch squares. And then of course you just need 1 4.5-inch square for the center of all of these blocks. Goes together so quickly, and again there's variations. Maybe you could make each block where you're moving the variations around. Maybe this one would be predominantly dark, this one predominantly light. Have fun with it. Just enjoy your scraps, and you can absolutely make beautiful quilts using your scrap stash. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Lori Dickman, and this is Quilting with Lori. Thanks for watching my channel. If you are new to my channel, please don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification button. That way you'll be notified when I put up tutorials. I put a couple of them up each and every week, and I've got a lot of fun things for you this coming year in 2023. This is our Scrappy block for week number 16. I have many more weeks to go, so there'll be a lot of interesting and fun blocks for you to create using your scrap stash. Have a wonderful week, happy quilting, and we'll see you in just a couple of days.